Just the two of us. Buddy, we're back.
Name the artist who sings that song, Davis.
Oh, I don't know who that artist is, but I did get 20 texts after last episode that it's Bill Withers. I
I
can't believe we.
I think I promised early in last week's episode, I promised I would Google it while you were talking about Padel, and I forgot to do that. So I also got like 25 notes saying it's Bill Withers. How could we not know that?
I don't know. He's a legend on his own, and I can't believe I'm embarrassed for myself. My family was embarrassed for me. It's just about moving on from it, you know?
I should have fixed it in post. Like just insert it into the audio. Bill Withers.
That would have been perfect. What's going on, Mike?
Man, it's happy to be back with you, Davis. I had a great time on the PPL podcast last week, and this is our chance to cover what's new in PPL. But I thought before we dive
Yeah.
into the world of the Pro Padel League, how are things for you? You're based in Toronto, but you're an owner of the Miami team. Like, how
Yeah.
often do you have to take that flight to Miami?
Yeah. So, not very often when we're not in match play. So I've been up there a few times to visit the site where the matches will be, SVB in Tampa. I've been there. We've met with some players there. We've done some things there, but I haven't had to go very often. So I'm based in Toronto, and I live in Toronto with my family. And as I said in episode 1, I'm the tennis director at a club called York Rackets in Midtown. It's a private boutique club, and that takes up all my time along with my family, really. And the Miami gig, I wouldn't call it part-time because it's all in, but I'm really burning the candle.
Well,
But
I just erroneously called you. I gave you a promotion a moment ago. I called you the owner of the Miami franchise. But what's your full title with the Miami?
I am owner, CEO. No, I am general manager, and I guess we could say slash coach, but I don't want to pretend that I am a Padel player. But I'm in the coaching world. I've coached at the highest levels of tennis. Yeah, I'm the director of tennis at York Rackets, so that's what I'm familiar with. And I will be able to, at least through the eye test, figure out some things that maybe a coach would. But I don't have to go to Miami very often, and I won't even be in Miami in May. I'll be going straight to Tampa,
Right. Okay.
right? So that's
So
where it
much
is.
happening now. So you're a tennis guy, of course. Like
Yeah,
many Padel players, maybe you start with tennis and
yeah.
discover the glory of
Ex
Padel. Did you
Except in
ever?
Europe, they start in Padel in Europe. So that's the funny thing. In Spain, Argentina, Portugal, even Sweden, they're playing Padel at 6, 7, 8 years old. It's North America that tends to have the players pick up the Padel racket at 19, 20, 21 after a tennis career.
Well, let me ask you about a professional tennis player that everybody
Yeah,
listening is familiar with, Tommy Haas.
yeah,
Have you ever shared the court with Tommy?
definitely not. Tommy Haas is at a level that I did not get to. I did not coach Tommy Haas, but I was a fan of Tommy Haas. I watched like everyone else did. He had a wonderful career. He is a San Diego Stingray, and as a part owner, and I think will even maybe jump on the court, maybe play. I'm hearing rumors.
Is that true? Because that would be wild. He
I,
was once ranked number 2 on the ATP
yeah,
singles
good call.
rank.
I was about to say that. You got to it before me. I think that a lot of the teams, and it's not even gimmicky, but because this league is new and it needs to catch the attention of a lot of people who don't know anything about padel. So I'm actually a big fan of what a lot of teams are doing, which is they're signing players. Like if Del Potro wants to get in there and play for Miami, he's in.
I was going to ask you because we spent a lot of time last week talking
Yeah,
about the Miami Padel Club and
yeah,
Marta Marrero,
yeah,
and that's an exciting. She was number 1 on the
yeah,
Women's Pro
yeah,
Tour.
yeah.
But I was wondering, like with Del Potro and like with this Tommy Haas ownership, like will we see these former tennis pros on the Padel court?
I think you'll see Tommy Haas. I think that there's a plan, at least a rumor that you might see him. He'll be very active, at least there, in some role. Del Potro will 100% be at our first match on May 13th, and then we will go from there. So he's really excited about that. And there are other players that other teams have signed that aren't necessarily big names, but um are going to jump on their roster. Like, oh, who else did San Diego? There's a
Well,
few good signings.
I want to ask you
Yeah,
specifically. Firstly, it's awesome that there's a team in this league called the Los Angeles Beat.
I know.
Like,
I
and the
know.
logo's cool. And I was thinking at some point you and I could, because we're so good at this, we could kick out like the best beat jams. Like, there's so many great songs with the word beat in the title.
That's so cool. And I also like that name. Like we talked last week about Miami PC and how you came out and said, I don't know about that name, Davis,
I
in
had
comparison to the other,
right.
but like LA Beat, the first time I heard that, and I'm on record as saying it's my favorite team name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like them all. I don't dislike any of them,
Right.
but something about the LA Beat, the beat can go on, can't stop the beat, drop the beat. Like there's a lot of things you could go with there, right?
Beat it.
Beat it. Oh, Michael Jackson tribute in there too. Yeah, I like that.
So the Los Angeles Beat, they don't only have a fantastic nickname and a really cool logo. And by the way, for the record, if the ownership is listening, I would wear a medium-sized Los Angeles Beat T-shirt during an episode of this Pro Padel League podcast. I just want to put that out there.
Sleeveless.
Well, give me a couple of weeks, maybe 6 weeks, and then I'll go
Oh,
sleeveless.
six. That's all you need. I need like a good month in there, man, in that gym.
And you're on
No,
the court every day, right? Let's not bury this
yeah,
lead. You mentioned the work you
yeah,
do at York Rackets, but you're on that court every day.
yeah. I am on court dedicated to that 6 to 7 hours a day. And I'm 43, I think. Yeah, I think I'm 43 and I still love it and I'm still passionate about it. Um, I think I love the club that I work at even more than I love the tennis of it because it's just a very nice relationship building club. I know all the members. So it's a great atmosphere.
I must ask the question, Davis. When will York Rackets install the Padel court?
Oh boy. So that's a hot topic in Toronto in general with all the private clubs. So let's break things down for people who don't understand how the racket world works.
Yeah, like
That
me.
there are very few clubs in the world, let alone Toronto or Miami, that have all racket sports within the club. So I think if you go back to the model in the 80s and 90s, you may have tennis and squash, right? But you don't have tennis, squash, padel, racquetball, badminton. You know what I mean? Like they don't have those niche sports in those clubs. But I wonder in 10 to 15 years how it expands because the padel court in general is hard to build. You need a higher ceiling. You need a wall, a glass wall. So it's different than a tennis court, but it's smaller too. So I don't know the metrics, but you could probably put on one tennis court, you could probably have at least two or three padel courts. So I
Well,
wonder if people will jump on the bandwagon and think, okay, well, I can put four people on a tennis court. I can put four people on a padel court. But if three padel courts can fit on a tennis court, I
right.
think that's 12 people. And I didn't do well in math, but I think that's 12 people. But that alone, I think will it's just a matter of time, you know, like Padel's been around for so long. Now that I'm in this world, I question it like anyone else does. Why isn't it bigger? You know, why isn't it bigger? Well, it needs something like the PPL.
Well, hey, I want to get back to the PPL and the Los Angeles Beat because there was breaking news this past week. I want to cover
Yeah,
a couple of the
yeah,
hot
yeah,
Padel League breaking newses. But before that, I got to point something out to you, okay? So Toronto has a franchise. I'm
yeah,
actually wearing a Maple Leaf jersey because it's
yeah.
NHL playoff time, but I would wear a Polar Bears jersey as well.
If they sent you one, if they sent you one.
Size medium. Okay. Just putting that out there into the universe once more. But my only pet peeve here, and I hope they're not listening. I hope Sebastian Javinko is not listening right now. He's one of the owners of that franchise. I just want to let the world know, the Americans know, the Europeans know, the Mexicans know, let everybody know that there are actually no polar bears in Toronto. Like you have to go to the Metro Toronto Zoo to find a polar bear.
I
You know what
I
I mean?
think that's
It
what he
sounds
meant.
like they okay.
I think that's what no first of all, no polar bears in Toronto is news to me, but I'll take your word for it. Um, maybe what I saw the other day was maybe a large dog. I don't know, but I think they were, I think they're playing with people around the world. Like,
But they're
think about someone
reinforcing a
from
stereotype, right, Davis?
exactly. So is that
Yeah,
good or bad? Is that good or bad?
it's bad because let's say you're with the Matrix, right? Another
Yeah,
franchise, right? They're based out of Arkansas, right?
yeah.
Okay, so the Arkansas Matrix, now the owners there here, oh, you're calling yourselves the Polar Bears. Oh, there must be polar bears roaming about maybe at like, I don't know, Young and St. Clair. There's some polar bears roaming. But Lear, I digress. Let's get back to the Los Angeles beat. What do you know,
That's
Davis Jamieson,
yeah,
about
yeah.
the
So
signing? Go ahead.
they were like, so every team has sort of gotten on the jumped on the bandwagon of trying to. Miami started a trend of signing some international stars,
Right.
and we did it a long time ago. And we did it so that we knew our roster, we knew what we were drafting, we could set our team up. But it definitely gave teams some time to counter, right? So we went all in, and now other teams are coming in and showing us what. So LAB may have been the last to sign, but they signed a former number one World Padel Tour player in Sebastian Nerone. And like, he may be 45 years old, but I mean, he was number one for years.
And
So
he's
like, we go
coming
ahead,
out of
Mike.
retirement, right? Like he's
Yeah.
literally coming out of retirement to join the Los Angeles beat, Sebastian Nerone.
Yeah. That's when I saw that, because I didn't get any info on that. I've spoken with the LA Beat guys for a while now to try to get insight, and they've kept hush hush. So I didn't know what they were going to do. But this signing came out of left field for me, because I just thought he was a little bit more removed from the sport. Martin Marrero is retired too, but we're talking like 8 months ago.
Yeah, but did you look into this? Because Sebastian Nerone only retired from professional padel in 2021.
I know. So which means he was playing into his 40s.
Right, and
That's
let's not bury the lead here because if you're new to padel, you might not be aware of this name, Sebastian Nerone. But let's point out the fact that he is a five-time world champion and of course a former number one. This is like if Michael Jordan were coming back to play in the NBA.
this is huge for the league, right? Like like all these things. I look at it, I put on the two hats. I put on hat number one, which is holy crap, that's a great signing. They'll be competitive, right? From the perspective of Miami. But then the second hat is, I need this league to be successful, for me to be successful, for Miami to be successful, for everyone to be successful. He creates that. He makes that easier, because now people are going to watch, because he's a former number one. And it just makes it's a game changer. LA did that a few days ago, and the day before that, they signed the former number one Argentinian women's player, Daniela Banchero. And that name might not be huge to us, but if you're number one at anything in Argentina or anywhere, that's a massive sign. So what they've done in a week is they've signed their number one man to play alongside their number one, probably North American draft pick, and then the same for their women. So they're almost identical to how other teams are looking, including Miami. Marta Marrero will play with player B. Ruben Rivera, our best player, best male player, will play with player B. So like, every team has got their star matched up with their North American, which is going to turn into a very competitive league, very competitive.
Now, Daniela Banchero, as
Yeah,
you pointed out there, a three-time world champion with the Argentinian national team.
yeah, yeah,
Like this is
yeah,
like the. I mean, I have another one in my back pocket. I'm gonna pull out and show you. But this is
yeah,
another like this is a significant Padel signing by the PPL. Los
yeah.
Angeles beat. That's amazing.
It's 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 another, like, I love how all the owners are, and GMs and presidents are viewing it from the same lens as we did, which was, it's one thing to try to win the league, but the other part to it is it has to pass the eye test, and we have to create a league and create teams. If Miami went into the league with having the two best players and smoked every player, every team, week to week, that's not very compelling, right? It's not, there's no story there.
You need some
And
parity.
yeah, we needed to have this feeling of parity and feeling of Well, who's going to win that? We don't know. The match has to be played. We need more rubber matches. I think I mentioned before, it's a men's match followed by a women's match, followed by, if necessary, a mixed match. So if all the teams are as good as they look on paper right now, I can only imagine how many third matches will be played in any given day, and that's good for the league.
Argentina is such a powerhouse Padel nation. Now, that was some breaking news from the Los Angeles beat there, but there's breaking news out of San Diego where the Stingrays play, and it involves Argentina as well. This is big. Are you sitting down, Davis?
I'm sitting down. I'm sitting down. Can you not see? Look, sitting down. Tell me.
Okay.
Tell
The
me what I already know, but you tell me.
Pretend you don't know because I want
Got
the
it.
reaction you had when you learned this news. The San Diego Stingrays have turned up the heat. Okay. Speaking of the beat, they got the heat in San Diego. They signed the number one ranked Argentinian player, Silvana Campos. All right, you ready
Bam.
for this? She has been ranked number one in Argentina for the past 11 years.
Oh my God. I've been ranked number one at arm wrestling in my household for approximately 11 years, too. Just putting it out there. I have an 11-year-old. She had no chance when she was one, and it's getting close. But no,
Yeah, give her a couple years.
Campus is that was another signing. Like social media is crazy. I love it and I hate it. I actually hate finding out about that stuff via social media because I feel like I'm being blindsided, but I get it. But that's a huge signing. That's another reason why. And all these teams, Mike, drafted really well. I know draft episode was early on in these, but um Miami, for example, we drafted number 7 for men and 6 for women. That put us behind in regards to who we could possibly get. So 6 other teams drafted before us with the men and 5 other for the women. So you start putting in some of these international stars with their higher draft picks, it becomes a very competitive but fun match to set up. I'm getting even more excited about the matches than I was before.
And let's get specific with dates because, of course, this
Yeah,
is the inaugural season of the PPL. So there's like this is new to everybody, not just me, but also you, everybody.
yeah,
May 8th, that's the deadline to finalize your rosters. May
yeah.
8th.
May 8th is the date in which we have to have submitted all of our playing players for the entire season. So there's no way. So if we haven't accounted for injuries and don't have enough on our roster, we can't add any after May 8th. It's all submitted. They're set in stone. The only other rule that comes after that is in order to be eligible for playoffs, you have to have played at least one match, right? So there's no way a team could sign some big player who could only be available for that finals day and put them in. They have to have played at least one match during the regular season, which I'm sure all the teams will have no problem doing. But May 8th is that deadline. And then we all roll in to Tampa. When I say we all, I mean all the players, all the presidents, all the GMs, all the owners will roll in May 10th/May 11th for everything to get started. And there'll be some team building, there'll be some dinners, there'll be some training, there'll be pick up your credentials, there'll be media. All that stuff is going on then for that May 13th start date. And we're on first thing in the morning on Saturday.
Wow. And
Yeah.
we covered this last week how you can follow along, but there'll be links, live stream links. And this is what I've learned as I'm a new PPL fan here. I've learned that, yeah, the website's the heartbeat of it all, propadelleague.com. But if
Yeah.
you follow the Pro Padel League on Instagram, it's a tremendous resource to keep abreast of these breaking news signings. I'm gonna mention another couple in a moment here, but just if you're on Instagram, and I know many of our listeners are on Instagram, it's simply Pro Padel League. That is the handle on Instagram. Follow Pro Padel League on Instagram, and you'll get the news. Basically, it sounds like you can get the news that way. The same time, Davis Jamieson gets the news.
Yeah. I sometimes, yeah, unfortunately, I would prefer to get it before all of you did, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. The
Right.
the Instagram, I think, is the fastest route. The websites are websites. You're going to have current information. I think the website will be utilized for standings, schedules, team rosters, like any typical. If I go to the Toronto Maple Leafs, you're wearing that nice jersey. If I go to their website, it's going to give me um, all the information I need to know about the team. It's going to give me all the information I need about stats, but I will follow the Toronto Maple Leafs on Instagram to get the most up to date, or Twitter, or whatever the case may be. But so I think that the Instagram Pro Padel League Instagram handle is probably the fastest route to get like literally very up to the minute, up to date information.
I love how the PPL has franchises in the United States. We've talked about many of them today. Of course, there's a franchise in Canada because there's the Toronto Polar Bears, but there's also a franchise in Mexico.
Yeah,
This is such a
yeah,
rarity, right? Because
yeah.
we have leagues, big leagues that have teams in Canada and the United States, but no teams in Mexico. So I just want to shout out because they made some signings. I'm gonna
Yeah, yeah.
chat with you about here, but I want to make sure people know how amazing. Speaking of nicknames, how amazing the Cancun Waves
So
nickname
good.
is. Isn't that good?
It's
Cancun Waves.
so good. It's relevant to Cancun. I mean, Cancun's cool because Cancun, I bet you, I've heard this so many times before. People know about Cancun, but maybe some don't even know it's in Mexico. I know that sounds crazy,
It
but
does sound
Cancun is everybody knows. You go anywhere, Cancun's cool.
yeah.
Cancun, like some people, it's like South Beach. Some people forget that South Beach is in Miami. They just think of South Beach on their own. Cancun Waves are, in my opinion, after going through all the rosters, I would put them in the top three. Um, they have the signings that you're probably going to mention, but it's the unknown of the Mexican leagues that there's a little bit of uncertainty there. I have no idea how to scout that.
Right.
And when they say that former number one player in the Mexican league, I mean, that sounds amazing, right? That sounds incredible, but I don't know how that compares to a league in Spain or the World Padel Tour, right? I don't know how that works, but I know for a fact that they're a really competitive team. They've got a large roster of like players that look really legit.
Well, a couple of them I'm just gonna shout out
Yeah,
now here because they recent signings, fairly recent signings, and I hope I get the name pronunciation right. You'll
you
correct
won't,
me,
you
Davis.
will not, you will not.
Ana Maria Cabreras.
Oh, that's pretty good.
I've been practicing, and Agustin El Loco. That's a great nickname. I want to have the nickname El Loco. Torre.
I know you do want that nickname. We might change it for you. I think it's appropriate for you. No, those are both good signings. I don't know. I've asked a lot of people about them.
Mhm.
You have to ask the people inside Mexico about them because their leagues play within Mexico and the rankings are within Mexico,
Right.
but they're strong because I've asked. So Ruben Rivera, who's our number one guy, he knows more about this than I do. He would have traveled and played, so he he's the first. Actually, he's the first guy that will text me when a signing comes out, which I think is awesome. Talk
Yeah.
about a guy who's ready to go here, right? Like he's on Instagram constantly just to see who his competition's going to be. How cool is that?
It's super cool, and I will just let the listenership know that. So Ana Maria Cabreras is from Mexico, but El Loco Augustin Torre is from Argentina, and there's
Yeah,
that country again. What a powerhouse Padel nation
yeah,
Argentina is.
yeah. Spain and Argentina. If you slide down the rankings, I believe I did it the other day. I think with the first, let's use men for first. The first 50 men, there were only two men not from Argentina or Spain.
Wow.
Like,
And even
like,
today in this episode, we spoke. I think we've spoken about three different pro players from Argentina that are playing in the
yeah,
PPL. And this speaks again that the premier league for padel players on the planet, and that's a lot of P's. I popped right there. Is the PPL? We talked about at length last week. We talked about Marta Marrero signing with your Miami Padel Club, and I can't wait till next week because we'll have a whole rash. Because you mentioned the deadline is, I guess I
yeah,
meant
yeah, yeah, yeah,
May 8th. But when we get together next week and talk more PPL for the podcast, I'm sure there'll be a rash of new signings
yeah,
to discuss.
yeah.
Love it.
I don't know, if I looked at the roster before we started the podcast to have a little bit of insight, I think that there are only a couple of teams left that have the ability to sign internationals. That's not to say they can't find North Americans, but we're limited to two international players on our roster. And I like that idea because for this to be a true North American startup league, you needed to have a certain amount of North Americans, or I don't think you're going to get the people to view it and to play it. And the idea is that we're going to promote North America for Padel. So I don't know how many more signings we're going to have. The Toronto Polar Bears have signed nobody internationally, and all indications are they won't. They'll stick with their Miami-born players, as we talked about last week.
Right. That's their strategy.
LA beat were the other team that had no international signings, but we've just gone over the fact that they've changed that. Cancun had majority Mexican signings, but you just pointed out one Argentinian, so maybe they have another woman on the way from outside of North America. And I think Arkansas has a spot available for either an international man or international woman. So, I mean, I'm going to stick to my telephone, my rotary phone, to see if there's any new signings on that.
Well, tune into the PPL podcast because whatever happens in this next week, we'll discuss it on the show next week, right, Davis?
I can't wait. I can't wait. Just
Go ahead.
Spending time with you alone, Mike, is just sort of what I look forward to the most.
So we could talk about songs we loved but cannot remember who the heck sang it. But I want to just make one observation on the Cancun Waves. I'm actually looking at the logo right now. I see the logo as like the half of the racket is like above the water. It's the Cancun Waves. It's almost like that's the fin from Jaws.
Ooh.
It's like just circling, I love it. One problem though, it's easy to report on the Cancun Waves signing new players as we just did. But what if they waive a player, WAIVE?
Oh.
That's going to be confusing. The Waves wave, right?
You know what they're going to do? They're not going to waive players on purpose just to not have that issue. I think that's their number one goal. Cancun, I just want to, next year when we start to travel to other teams to play in their home matches, I'm already starting to figure out where I'm going to enjoy going the most. Right. So like we got Cancun,
wow.
LA. I mean, who doesn't want to go to LA? Toronto, I won't have to travel very far.
Right.
Arkansas, how cool would that be? I went as a kid. I'd like to go back again. These teams are going to be San Diego. I mean, there's some really nice places to go.
What's the number one destination in North America that you hope lands the next PPL franchise?
New York.
The Big Apple.
I think I think New York, getting East Coast teams, I think is important from TV perspective, but also just population. I think that New York having a team, maybe Chicago, maybe something West Coasty like Seattle, something like that. Like I think teams like that are important. New York is the most important team. Maybe where there's a bit of a hotbed for Padel in places like Houston. So we've drafted two players from Texas. Paloma, we drafted from Texas, and Jose, who we talked about last week, we drafted from Texas. So I didn't realize that there was that happening there, but it is. So I really feel like if there's success in this league, there'll be a minimum of 4 or 5 teams that jump on next year.
Wow. I can't wait to find out what those nicknames are. I'm
just going to get better. Maybe we'll have a nickname. Maybe Miami will have a new nickname by then.
Here's an idea for the Chicago franchise. The Chicago Wind.
Oh, Chicago Wind. I bet you it's taken. I bet you there's some copyright there, because you're not the first one to think about that, Mike, because you're smart, but I don't know if you're that smart.
And before I throw to you for the outro, and I've loved Davis, I'm learning so much just chatting with you every week about the PPL, and I'm so excited for games in earnest to start in May. But one point, if they land and when they land a franchise in New York City, just remember this, Davis. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
That's so true. The Big Apple, baby. Well, this episode was fun as usual, Mike. This is an amazing 25, 30 minutes spent with you. We're talking about the PPL, the Pro Padel League. We're talking about signings. We're talking about players. We're talking about everything that goes into the league. I have a question for you to end off, and I'm going to put you on the spot with this one, buddy.
Yes.
If you could choose your choice, if you could choose one song that led the intro to the very first ever Pro Padel League match. So when that TV starts, when that song, when you press it on and it's about to go into that league, what song / instrumental do you want to hear? Let's go.
Survivors, Eye of the Tiger. Let's go.
Oh, that's been used before, buddy.
Okay, well, you're putting me on the spot
I
here,
like
David.
it.
So maybe
But
I come back next week with another
that
round.
was the point. Let me give you mine.
Let's hear
Okay.
it.
Anything Hall and Oates. Anything. Anything, maybe every Hall and Oates song ever made.
Well, Davis, you're making my dreams come true.
Ooh, 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 ooh. Vamos!